Is it the senator from South Carolina's understanding that we would be taking up a DREAM Act, which if going through the regular process would go to the Judiciary Committee, and the don't ask, don't tell issue, and perhaps something about secret holds, and then go off of the bill until after the elections in a very constricted time frame of the, quote, lame duck session? And what is the senator's view about what the priorities of the leadership is here?
Well,
is it political? I mean, why else would you take up only certain amendments and then move off the bill that would then resume possibly for some truncated period of time after the election? What's that all about?
Well, Sherlock Holmes said that what's left on the table when you rule everything out is the answer. And it makes no sense to me, Senator McCain, for us to bring the defense authorization bill to the floor of the Senate at any time where you and I cannot offer an amendment about how you try a terrorist. Should Khalid Sheikh Mohammed be given a federal court right? Should he be put in New York City or any other federal court and tried as a normal criminal, or should he be tried in military court as an enemy combatant? These are big issues, but under the construct that's been created, and the reason I'm voting no when I would normally vote yes, is I can't offer those amendments. And we're going to be voting on the DREAM Act. Now, the DREAM Act is a hot topic in the immigration world, but not very hot among our troops. I've been to Afghanistan and Iraq numerous times, and I haven't had one soldier or airman or sailor or Marine or Coast Guard member ask me about the DREAM Act. They want to know, are they going to get paid more? Do they have the tools to win the war? So, yes, I think this is politics at its worst, may I say. And as a Republican, I stand here knowing our party's probably abused power in the past, but not like this. This, to me, is going to a new level. We're in 2 wars. Iran is on the verge, I think, of making a breakthrough on the nuclear weapons front, and we have a defense bill where you can't amend it to talk about the war on terror, about legal changes we need to stay safe, stop reading terrorists their Miranda rights, and we're going to be voting on the DREAM Act, which is checking a block. We're going to be voting on Don't Ask, Don't Tell in a way I think is offensive to the men and women who serve. You were promised last year as the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, you were told when you asked a question that our men and women in uniform would give us input before the administration would move to change Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Well, that's all been turned upside down. The law is now that it will be repealed and you ask later. And this idea about secret holes in the Senate, that's probably an internal matter that needs to be resolved, but not on the defense authorization bill.
Could I ask the Senator
the answer
a question?
is this is politics.
If you do address the issue on the defense authorization bill, or if you were addressing the issue, would it be more appropriate to assess the impact on battle effectiveness and morale on the men and women who are serving, and then arrive at a decision as to whether that legislation or any other legislation, although this is a very important legislation, should be repealed or not? Instead, isn't it true that the construct of the way that it went through the Senate Armed Services Committee is that the 3 individuals who support repeal, the president, who made a political promise, the Secretary of Defense, who we admire, and the Secretary and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, will make a determination as to whether the study has been completed sufficiently to ensure the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell without difficulty, as opposed to taking a survey, finding out the impact on morale and battle readiness, and then make a determination. And also, according to this process as set up in the Armed Services Committee, the 4 service chiefs, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, are left out of the decision-making. Why? Because they have called for exactly what I was just describing, which is a study to assess the impact of morale and battle effectiveness prior to repeal. Rather, in other words, in this instance, the fix is in.
Well, Senator, you make a good point. You've been the ranking member. Obviously, your military record is well known. And you were promised, I took it as a promise, last year or the year before last when you brought this up, that we would not change Don't Ask, Don't Tell until we got input from those who serve our country in uniform. That process is ongoing. But now the law that we're expected to vote on here tomorrow changes Don't Ask, Don't Tell, completely reverses that policy, but allows us to get input later. I think that's quite offensive. And we know there is going to be no snowball's chance in hell. They're actually going to listen to what our men and women say, because the whole goal is to get that vote for a specific constituency. Special interest groups are dominating this bill unlike any time before. We changed the law about abortions in military hospitals. We got the DREAM Act, which has got zero to do with national defense in my view, and now we got a major change in Don't Ask, Don't Tell in a way that was contrary. And I spoke to the incoming Commandant of the Marine Corps, who will be up for a vote here soon. And he said he was very concerned about making this change now. We're in 2 wars. There's a lot going on in the world, and this is a major social change. And he thinks it would be smart to listen to the Marines and other service members before we made the change. But if the bill becomes law, we will have not done that. And I think that is a huge mistake. And I want to thank you, Senator McCain, for your leadership to make sure that the men and women in uniform are heard from before Congress acts.
Well, one more question, and the issue obviously is the proposal to include the so-called DREAM Act. I think that every member of Congress, every American citizen has some sympathy for individuals who were brought to this country without making the decision to do so. Not forgetting that the people that brought them there were brought them this country were breaking our laws when they did so. But isn't it also true that if we address the DREAM Act or other parts of comprehensive immigration reform before securing the borders, then 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now, we will be faced with another generation of young people who were brought here against their will, who have a compelling story to tell? In other words, isn't the moral of the story to hearken back to the 1980s when, under our beloved Ronald Reagan, we gave amnesty to a couple of million people, and they said they would secure the borders? We ended up with 12 million people who are here illegally. So isn't that a situation that we all want to remedy, but we want to make sure we don't have to remedy it again?
Your point is well taken. If the DREAM Act is not considered part of comprehensive immigration reform, it will be a huge mistake. The reason we have 12 million people here illegally in our country is because you can get to America pretty easily, illegally, obviously. You can walk across the street in some places. So you got to control the border. Visa overstays are 40% of the illegal immigration problem. If you don't do that, then you're never going to stop the third wave of illegal immigration. You got to deal with why they come, to get jobs. We need better employer verification. We need a temporary worker program so employers can hire people on a win-win situation where people from other countries can come here and work, make some money, and go back home. It helps us, it helps them. That's what you need to do with immigration, comprehensive reform. The DREAM Act is about November politics. It's an emotional topic that if you did it in isolation would be undercutting comprehensive reform. Certainly has got nothing to do with defense authorization. It's trying to check a block. And to the people who came to my office last week who were literally praying that I would vote for the DREAM Act and the defense authorization bill, you're certainly being used and abused in my view. This is an emotional topic, and at the end of the day, all I can tell you is this is not a way to change immigration. This is not comprehensive immigration reform. This is not good defense policy. This is just sheer raw politics at a time when we could do better and should do better.